Wow. I thought there was a lot in the last episode, but this one, holy moly. We're going to talk about it. Stay tuned. By the way, if you ever hear this sound, don't think that's not me. That's the chair. There's like this grippy kind of fake leather on the chair. I promise you, it's not coming from my body, if you will. Hello friends, welcome back to the show. So glad to see you all once again. And if you're new here, I'm especially glad to see you. Welcome. Glad that you joined us because this is where we go back and look at cartoons that we grew up on in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Cartoons from our childhood and look at them through the perspective of an adult, as well as some other fun content that we release here on the channel. So if this sounds like something you might enjoy, hit that subscribe button. I'm not going to say smash the subscribe button. That drives me nuts when people say that. But just click it. Just click that subscribe button. It always helps me out tremendously here on the channel. And I always appreciate that. And the more that we grow, the more that I can do. And the more that I can do, the more that I can make. I don't know. Which then everybody wins. Right now we're working our way through a series talking about Batman Beyond. And as we're getting close to the end of the second season, I keep saying that, but I guess we have, what, five, six, seven more episodes? 4 episodes? Something like that. Left in the second season, and then there's only one more season. But enough about that, because today we're talking about the episode Plague, which originally aired on April 15th, 2000. Tax Day.
Anything to declare?
Yeah, St. Denis party's hearty.
So yeah, there is a lot crammed into this episode, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes that gives you a lot to absorb and is an in-depth story. And sometimes you watch stories, you go, wow, how'd they get all that story into 22 and a half minutes? Then you go, sometimes that you're going, wow, that's just confusing. How did we get from that to this, and who's that person? Why are they there? And what's happened? So you have to stick around and see which episode this is. Good that there's a lot in there, or bad that there's a lot in there. Stay tuned and you'll find out. But we'll get into all that right after our 60-second Mad Stan bomb rundown of the episode. I'm going to give you a complete synopsis of the episode, or try my best. There's a lot in this one. In 60 seconds or less, or that bomb is going to blow up. Now, if the bomb blows up, I will finish the description, but just kind of helps keep the pacing going. Here we go. At the Gotham airport, Terry and the gang are there to pick up Nelson, who has just come in from spring break, and he has this green vial. The customs stops. He goes, oh, what's this? I don't know where it came from. That guy in customs goes back, and he gives it to the Cobra guy, and he goes, oh, thank you. Oh, I better change my face. So this guy changes his face. Turns out he's false face. And then Stalker shows up, takes Nelson, and he goes, where is that vial? I don't know. It wasn't mine. Okay. And then Terry goes, oh, Stalker's here. So he goes trying to stop him, and he's getting ready to fight Stalker, and then out of the shadows comes Bennett, the NSA guy, and he goes, hey, what, don't. He's working for us. We had to get him to stop the Cobra from releasing this vial of these chemicals. We're trying to find, okay, so you two work together, and they're working together. I don't trust you. But I am not here for you. And then they go in and they infiltrate the Cobra command center without G.I. Joe. And then as they're there, then he goes, they have different techniques, and they're battling, and then they fight, and then they find out, here's the plan. They're going to release this chemical on all the credits, and then it's going to get out into the world. And they gave the Cobra guy gave false face. Told you there's a lot. Gave false face, injected him with the serum so that he's infected, and the clock's ticking, and they got to get this stopped. And as they're working their way through, then Terry has to go it alone because Stalker gets taken out, and then he's about ready to get crushed, and then Stalker comes and helps him, and they are able to stop the vial from being released. And in the process, then Stalker goes, I'm not going to here to kill you all, but one day I will. And they work together, and then but they're not friends. Yeah, I'm confused too.
Right now, you've got bigger problems.
This episode starts out in the airport, and which I get it is kind of just a way into how the story, to me, it felt like a very unnecessary scene. It feels like it's too easy to watch that scene and go, really? That's the best way that they could get those vials of chemicals into Gotham City, was smuggling them in some kid's bag from spring break? criminals, like the Cobra organization doesn't have their own planes or copters or rockets or something to ship this into Gotham.
Looks like he was thorough.
So it just seemed like a weird scene and a weird convergence of all these elements coming together. And then Batman's trying to stop Stalker because last time we saw him, he was a bad guy, and now he's helping out this organization.
And this isn't Falseface.
And we have this NSA organization, the Agent Bennett, which was introduced in the last episode, Zeta, which you can see up here. And again, it raises those questions of like, who are these guys? What are they trying to do? I feel like I need an episode just focused on the NSA to understand what their purpose is. Are they good? Are they bad? I mean, here they are working with this known assassin, I guess, hunter, Stalker.
So we turned to the only man who could track him down.
Why didn't they ask Batman? But then they want Batman and this guy to work together. So I say all that just to say I was very confused with the amount that they were putting into this episode right at the beginning.
If we don't pay a ransom of 10 billion credits, they've threatened to release a deadly supervirus.
I mean, you look at this episode, we've got Cobra organization, which we haven't introduced yet. That's a new company, I believe, or new company. A new organization, which, again, I couldn't help but keep thinking of G.I. Joe and Cobra.
Cobra Command warns us to be ready.
And then we have the NSA and Agent Bennett, which is seems mysterious to me, but I don't feel like their purpose is to be mysterious. Nobody else is talking about how they're confused of what their purpose is. Terry doesn't really address that. It's just they are.
He's working for us now, Batman.
And then they're working with this other villain who was established earlier in Bloodsport, which you can see up here. And so we have those three elements all kind of worked into this episode at once. And of course, and then we also have Falseface, which is another villain, which I feel like was just kind of inserted into this episode as another entity.
Tracking a man named Falseface.
And I feel like any one of them needed more backstory. Now, granted, Stalker had his backstory in Bloodsport, but
The Stalker agreed to help us.
I felt like we needed more understanding of what's going on to just pick up in this episode.
Time is running out.
Which just added to the confusion of, okay, so we got Cobra working with Falseface and NSA working with Stalker, and Batman is sort of just along for the ride. Just a lot to establish in a quick amount of time.
Unfortunately, we were too late.
Now, having said all that, I'm one that I've said previously here on the channel that I like a depth of story. I like, when the show, and I talked about this a lot in Batman the Animated Series, is they didn't write for kids. The show was made for kids, but they didn't talk down to kids. They didn't, spoon feed them plots. It was a very rich, in-depth stories that they were telling in that, which happened to be a cartoon, which happened to be comic book characters, and happened to be for kids. And I felt like that maturity that they addressed in that was refreshing to see, having been a kid watching that.
Hello? We just kicked your scaly butts.
So I'm not necessarily trying to be down on the fact that there's a lot in the story, a lot of depth, but it felt like none of those elements that they've introduced in the story, or none of these characters, got enough story time, got enough introduction, and it felt like they were just kind of forcing it all in. Where else have I seen that?
How many of you are there? Not enough.
NSA was kind of introduced before, but I felt like Cobra needed their own episode. I felt like Falseface needed his own episode, and then maybe at the end we see how they're tied together with Cobra, or see something foreshadowing that NSA is going to be working with Stalker in the future, or they appreciate his skills, or something. Those little kind of tags that they used to do in the end of the shows that they did in Batman, they did in Superman. And in this one, it felt like they had the idea for this episode and they didn't put any work in setting it up. And it just like jumped into it to the point where I was sitting there watching it, knowing that I've seen every episode up to this point, going, did I miss something? Is there something in this that I should have known about?
He knows something.
And now the elephant in the room is Batman working with Stalker. So we bring Stalker back for another episode. You know, I wasn't crazy about his character to begin with in his original episode, and then we have him in this one. I get that, like, maybe they wanted to use that character. They liked him, wanted to bring him in, but it was a story that it didn't need to be him, and it felt really kind of forced that having Batman and Stalker thrown into the situation to work together, that on the surface I was going, do we need that story? Do we need that?
This freak tried to hunt me down like a wild animal. What if he goes psycho again?
Because they weren't close enough to go, oh, I see how they got to put away their differences and now work together. Nor does this adversary call for that. This, to me, doesn't feel like they need Stalker to find this guy. Again, here we since we haven't established Cobra or Falseface or any of those elements, why is Stalker the best guy to get him?
Continue the hunt. He must not escape.
And second of all, if NSA knows as much as they do, why are they going to Stalker as being this great hunter? He can find Falseface when Batman was the one that took down Stalker. Why not go to Batman? Why not work with Batman and have him do that? Eliminate Stalker altogether and just have the NSA, who Terry already has, is at odds with the way that they treated Zeta, and they were kind of the antagonists of the last episode. So I think it could be interesting just to go, okay, the NSA, Agent Bennett came to Batman and was like, hey, we need to put away our differences. We got to stop Falseface. Here's what's going on. I feel like could have been an interesting story rather than trying to cram another element into it. Just my thought. But I'm not much of a writer.
They couldn't. What did you expect from a pack of vipers?
Just a side note, is Muscle City Sweatshop really a good name for a gym? It is a gym, right? I mean, they don't really establish that well, but boy, what an off-putting name. I'm going to go work out at Muscle City Sweatshop. Oh, I've got a membership too, Muscle City Sweatshop.
Try the Muscle City Sweatshop.
I will say one of the things that this episode does well is that sense of urgency. Sometimes that's missing in some of these episodes, where the motivation of the story, the urgency for Terry's got to stop this, he's got to get to this, he's got to get to that so that it is accomplished, is kind of lacking sometimes. This one established it well. Here we have a ticking clock that he's got to stop this plague, given the name, from infiltrating the city. And in that sense, okay, so Stalker's working with him. He's got to work with him and be able to do this.
The virus will spread quickly when they release it.
And so that worked well. I mean, that plot in itself, I felt like was enough to carry this episode through.
Call your pal Bennett. Tell him the worst is over.
And even if they just would have had that, Cobra trying to release this, they're working with Falseface and Batman having to stop them. Maybe Batman works with G.I. Joe to stop Cobra. Why not do that? Great crossover opportunity.
You're kidding, right?
I feel like the last couple episodes have really introduced a lot, and it kind of makes me interested to see where the series is going to go, as far as, like, we kind of hit this lull where it was just like kind of basic, kind of throwaway episodes, not real deliberate. And maybe it was building up to these moments where they're going, okay, let's introduce more. Let's get more into these episodes, kind of flesh out these characters, these stories. We're halfway through the second season. Now's the time to do that. But it also, again, lends itself that some of those throwaway episodes would have been benefited by taking just a little tag at the end of the episode to introduce some of these elements. Let's bring Falseface into one of those stories. Let's bring Cobra working in the background into one of those stories. Let's have the NSA a little more involved before Zeta came along. Something like that could have helped kind of tie all these episodes together a little bit better.
In the jungle, it's kill or be killed.
And when it all was said and done, when we finally get to that climactic battle, we didn't really need Stalker. I mean, Batman is a much better hunter than Stalker, which we already proven, and is a better detective, and his methods work even better. Now, Stalker did help out identifying which one of the Cobra ones was in charge. He wouldn't have needed to do that if he wouldn't have just rushed in and attacked everybody.
Perhaps I was impatient.
So it felt like he just wasn't needed in this episode. And then he was kind of taken out of commission with one of those shocker things, which which is also interesting that comes up every once in a while in Batman stories.
How about a kiss, Santa Claus?
The whole motivation of Stalker prior to this was hunting Batman, and him being the greatest adversary, his greatest, accomplishment is hunting him. So I have mixed feelings about the ending. That I like that he respects Batman enough to go, hey, I want us to be quality adversaries versus just taking a cheap shot at him. But it also felt like just kind of a lame way of explaining away his re-involvement into the story to go, oh yeah, our time will come where I'll take you down for real, versus, hitting you when you were down. Seemed like a cheap explanation for that.
When you die, it will be by my hand.
So when it comes time to rank this episode, it's another one of those episodes that I feel like I got to go back and watch it a few more times. I watched it twice preparing for this, and I feel like I need to watch it a few more times and see if there's more to it. But just on the surface, first interpretation of it, it just felt like a lot. I like a depth of story. I like a quality, well-crafted story. But this one didn't feel deliberate because they weren't setting this stuff up prior to this episode much. It just felt like an episode where they had all these ideas of like, oh, let's just dump it all in this mixing pot and stir it up and see what we end up with. So it was just, I spent some of the episode being confused, some of the episode going, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they be doing that? And some of the episode going, why did this need to be told? So maybe I'm being a little hard on it, but for all those reasons, this episode falls at the number 28 spot of my favorite episodes so far. Kind of far down on the list, but falls just below Revenant because that episode felt like a good evolution of the Willie character. That one just felt a little bit more deliberate than this episode. But I do have this one beating out Terry's Friend Dates a Robot because that title's just too long. No, because, again, I'm not a fan of the comedic episodes, so this one had to beat that one out.
There are worse things than an honorable death.
So let me ask this question again. Did you feel like Stalker deserved another episode? And if he did, do you feel like this was a good way of using Stalker again? Or was this just kind of a lackluster way of using him again? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, click that like button. If you're excited to see more content like this or just want to hear me ramble on about other episodes, hit subscribe. And while you're down there, you can hit that little bell notification so that YouTube knows that you want to be notified every time that I have new videos coming out. And if you do that, that helps me out and it helps you out get this content that much quicker. So thank you in advance for clicking that subscribe button. So stick around. We have new episodes coming out every week. Next up, we have the episode April Moon. So you don't want to miss that. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Andy Knode. I'll see you soon.